Hi there, and welcome back to part 2 of the YZ250 two-stroke build. My goal with this build, keep it cheap and have as much fun with all Tusk parts that I was having with the premium parts that came stock on the bike. So to go over everything Tusk that I've used on this bike. First off, let's start with tires. We got Tusk EMX, or as I was corrected, MX EMEX T45 tires. We got Tusk tubes in there. We also have a Tusk top-end rebuild kit, along with Tusk chain sprocket and a new chain guard, case guard. What else? I think that's it. And since I've done the build, I have added a pair of Pro Taper Fusion cross pad handlebars to the bike. Those are obviously not Tusk. However, I had an incident where I let a buddy take the bike out. He happened to lay it down, bent the bars up, and he felt bad, so he sent me some cash, and I replaced the bars with some bars I've been wanting to try. So I'll give those a quick review as well. Oh, and yes, the other thing Tusk on this bike was the brake pads. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and start with how much I've actually ridden this bike since I've rebuilt it. So since I rebuilt it, I've put about 5 hours on this bike, and as you can see, it's been ridden pretty hard and put away, not wet, but now it's dry. It is still dirty. I haven't cleaned it yet. I've had lots of track days and a couple of days in the woods on this bike. So far, I have been having fun, but I do have my complaints around some of these Tusk parts. First off, let's start with the engine. So I rebuilt the top end of this engine with the Tusk top end rebuild kit, including the Tusk piston. A couple of my buddies and a couple of reviews and comments I've read online, people were saying that there's no way they would trust putting a Tusk piston in the top end of their YZ250. And so far, from my experience of about 5 hours of riding, some of that being pretty casual. I'm not a top level A rider or anything. I'm not ringing this thing out often, but I have spent some time ringing it out and going fast, especially in some deeper loamier track conditions. But so far, the top end of this thing has held up really well. Right away when I rebuilt the bike, it felt crispy and snappy, and it still feels that way even after 5 hours. And yeah, I don't see any issues with it. Rocky Mountain ATV MC is the person. There's a sick motorcycle going by right there. Rocky Mountain ATV MC is the person that, is the company that creates all the Tusk products, and they have a high reputation to uphold, and I would highly doubt that they would create a piston to sell that would not be something that would hold up long term. And so I trusted in the product and went for a try on it, and so far I have really liked the top end of this engine, and it pulls strong all the way through. Moving on to the chain and sprocket. So I've ran Tusk chains and sprockets in the past, and so far I have kept this thing, well maintained. I lube it before I go out for every ride. I try to keep it as clean as possible while I'm at the track as well, and so far showing very little signs of wear. And I also have not even adjusted the chain one time since I put it on. It has stretched out the tiniest bit. It could probably be due for an adjustment now, but I'm super happy with that. I mean, to put a chain on a bike, you're going to expect a little bit of stretch, especially in the beginning, but this thing hasn't stretched much at all. I think that's largely due to the two-stroke. It is not quite as torquey and hard on that chain, especially having very little engine braking. It allows it to free flow, and it doesn't put as much clanking back and forth per se on the chain as it would on a four-stroke. And so I've been super happy with the Tusk products there. And this steel, I think they called it the Aero Steel rear sprocket, is a new product from Tusk, and it has held up exceptional. And I don't even perceive that these chains and sprockets have changed any of the power output at all either. It still feels like a very powerful bike, pulls strong, and I have been very happy with those. On to the bad. So in this hand right here with my microphone, I have a pair of front Tusk brake pads. And I just gotta say, there's a reason in this hand I have a pair of Yamaha genuine brake pads in my other hand. So when I first put these pads on the bike, I gave them a little bit of a chance. Right away, they do not have near as much grab, and I was pulling on my front brake lever super hard to try to get some stopping power, and I had very little stopping power with these, and I coughed that up to time, and I figured they would just need a little bit of time to wear in, and I also thought they might be dirty, so I hit them with brake cleaner a couple times, and I also tried my best to just give it some time and let them break in, wear in, and they did break in just the tiniest bit, but I did not have much stopping power at all in the front end as I was used to. And part of the goal for this build was, like I said, to have as much fun riding with less premium parts. These are like $16 brake pads. These, I think after I paid the tax on them, because that's all I needed, tax and shipping, I think they were like $55. And so that's a big difference in price, but it's also, from my experience so far, a big difference in performance. And so I'm gonna be throwing those to the side, and I'm gonna be putting the stock brake pads back on. Even with the stock brake pads being included back into this build, I still have a rebuild of under $1,000 for all the stuff that I've done. And yeah, those front brake pads did not give me any stopping power. And I never actually even put the rear Tusk brake pads on because my rear brake pads have plenty of pad life left. I'm a little front brake heavy on the bike. And so my front brake pads, before I put the Tusk ones on, were completely shot. And so, yeah, no stopping power with those. I've ran those exact same brake pads in the past on a CRF 250 R 4-stroke. I didn't perceive that with the Honda brake setup that they were squishy and didn't give me any grab like they have on the Yamaha. I've heard complaints in general about the Yamaha front brake and how it can feel very squishy and soft. Now, when I put those pads from Tusk on there, it made it way worse. And so I went back onto Rocky Mountain's website and picked up some Yamaha genuine stock brake pads from Niffen. I think that's the company. And so I'm going to be putting those back on, hopefully get back some of that stopping power, because not having it was making me have a kind of a bad time. It was not as fun. And so, yes, I am going to have to go with the premium brake pads in the future. That leads me to the tires, which I did a full review video on the tires, so I'm going to go over them just really quickly again. But rear tire, I freaking love this rear tire, and I've put more hours on it since I did that video, and I will still have to say this rear tire is holding up exceptionally, and I have not had in any conditions any major complaints about it. It hooks up super well. I'm super happy with it, and I'm also happy to see that these knobbies are holding up well, because that was kind of my idea with going with the harder compound tire that's meant for some harder compact dirt, is that I might get a little bit more life out of these tires. Rear tire, awesome. I'm going to keep running that in the future. For me, as an amateur rider, I perceive no difference between this, let's call it a $50, $60 tire versus a $120 tire. And so I'm going to go with this one all day over a set of Dunlops or anything else, as long as the price stays good. Onto the front tire. I was worried about this tire since I pulled it out of the box. If you want to see the reasons as to why, you can watch some older videos. But I really have not liked it since I've ridden with it. It's made me a much more hesitant rider. And it's honestly gives me a very uneasy feel, unpredictable feel everywhere on the track. And I think that's due to not having a very high center knob. it's like when you're starting to lean the bike over, you're getting no grab, and then as soon as you lean it over all the way to get into a rut, it's like all the grab at once, and it like hooks up and wants to pull me out of the rut. I do, however, suspect that some of that unpredictable feeling as well was coming from having very little stopping power in the front end, especially being a rider that relies on the front end for a lot of stopping power, where I would often grab that brake to like sink that front tire down and try to get some hookup with it. I think the softer brake, that softer feeling and those brake pads that I was not liking might be giving me some of those feelings. And so the very last time I rode on this bike, we had a really good track prep, and that front tire, I started to kind of get used to it, and it started to grow on me a little bit. I started to trust it a little bit more, and I was even found myself weighting the front end. And so based on my last review video of that tire, I don't think it's going to be as bad as I kind of made it out to be in that video. And it still looks like it has some good life. And so I'm going to be able to give it another chance running some better brake pads on the front of this bike, and hopefully like a little bit more. I'm going to throw these brake pads on this evening, and then on Sunday, which is a couple days from now, I'm going to be heading to Briarcliff MX and here in Ohio, and I'm going to be giving those a whole nother run, a whole nother kind of test. And so yeah, the front tire, I've not been the biggest fan. In the future, I'm going to run the MX T35 tire from Tusk and see if that front tire, which is made for a little bit more of the conditions I do ride on a regular basis, to see if that tire can give me the front end feel and the front end fun that I was having with my Dunlap AT82, which I still think is the best tire I've ever ran on the front of a dirt bike. The only two things I've had issues with overall with this build that I have not liked is the Tusk MX T45 front tire and the Tusk brake pads. Other than that, I am very happy with the build. I've been having fun riding the dirt bike, regardless of how the bike feels. Every time I go out and ride, I do my best to not complain and just enjoy riding. But I think adding these brake pads back on is going to elevate the riding experience a little bit, have as much fun as I was having on the premium parts. And in the future, I'm going to be swapping out that front tire to the other Tusk T35 tire and see if it can be a better ride for me. The Pro Taper Fusion bars. These are kind of expensive bars, but they were comparable in price to just ordering a pair of stock bars. And so I went ahead and went with these. And I wanted the cross center pad for being able to put my Garmin watch on to have a timer. I was kind of confused in the purchase process. If you look it up online as to what the YZ models use for a bend on their bars, it says that they use the SX race bend, and I really liked that bend before, and so I ordered the Fusion SX race bend from Pro Taper, and I don't think they're the same. I think these bars feel a little bit taller than the stock bars, and at first I didn't really like that. However, it started to grow on me. These do have, because they have the cross bar even set in the mode that allows it to flex the most, they don't have near as much flex as the stock bars, and they do feel stiffer. It gives you a little bit more of a confident feeling in what the bike's going to do, for me at least, but it gives me a little bit of hand pump at the moment. I don't really get arm pump too much, but my hands will start to get a lot of feedback and start to feel a little bit beat up. That could also be due to these grips are starting to wear out, so that could also be a contributing factor. However, the Pro Taper bars look sick on here. They're going to be fine for me. I'm going to adjust to them. I've only had one ride with them so far, and they will be good bars for me. I'm certain of it, as they kind of grow on me a little bit more. Overall, that's an update on my Tusk YZ250 build. If you've enjoyed these Tusk videos, go ahead and give a like, a comment down below on what your thoughts are. Give a subscribe as well, and thanks for watching.